If you're a tactical shooter player that plays a lot of Counterstrike, a lot of Valorant, you've for sure heard about Fortnite Ballistic and you're wondering, should I try it out? Is it worth my time? This is why I created this video to explain to you and tell you, should you do it or should you not play the game for now?
Today's episode is sponsored by Elgato. Go to elgato.com for the newest hardware for streamers, use the link from the description below and the code for 5% off. Thank you Elgato for sponsoring the stream.
Fortnite Ballistic at its core follows the same tried and true Counter-Strike formula. It's a 5v5 gameplay, bomb planting, defusing. It's the kind of loop that's been fueling tactical shooters for decades. You've got weapons, gear that you buy, and get this, also special team specific items that's unique to your role. Well, actually, not a role, but just the item you choose. Sounds great, right? A little mix of CS, maybe some Valorant? Well, not really, but let's dive in. Remember, the game is in early access, which means the developers released it to the early access to get feedback. So there's expected to be a lot of bugs, a lot of unpolished mechanics, and in general, a lot of things that might be questionable because they would like to hear what the community thinks about it and gets them proper feedback. So even though my video might be filled with a lot of negative constructive feedback, it is gonna be constructive because that's what the developers want to have from an early access title. But remember, early access has a lot of stigma behind it because there are so many games that are being just released into early access while still have to be paid for that are essentially finished games but with a lot of bugs that the developer just wants to like get under the rug because it's early access game. So there's very high expectations from the community when it comes to early access games because no one treats them like early access anymore. They're just called like that and everyone thinks it's a finished product anyway. And it feels like Fortnite Ballistic is actually an early access game because it does feel that it is an unfinished product. And we're gonna break down what exactly happens in the game that makes me say this. Now let's talk about the shooting mechanics, the most important part of any shooter. And here's the thing, they are not satisfying enough. There's no punch, no kick, no feedback, no sense of, oh yeah, I hit that shot. So whenever you're firing a pistol or an assault rifle, it just feels hollow. And I hope this is gonna take a lot of effort for the devs to actually rework the way that the guns feel like. Because right now, when you compare it to PUBG, when you compare it to CS, to Valorant, to Tarkov, all the guns in all those games feel like you're actually shooting a gun. Although the best in my eyes is PUBG and Tarkov when it comes to that feeling of feedback when you're shooting the gun. But right now in Fortnite Ballistic, it just feels like you're shooting a toy gun that doesn't deliver the feedback to you when you either shoot the gun or hit something. And the worst part, I feel like, in Fortnite Ballistic is completely even disregarded. The sound and the feedback when you hit a headshot doesn't get you any satisfaction. And if you listen to developers from other games, you will know that they put a lot of effort, a lot of research into making that particular sound and feeling of hitting a headshot feel great. Because it's the most exciting moment for the player to actually get in a video game when it comes to shooting. And that's why Overwatch does it great with the sound. Valorant does it great with the visual and audio feedback. Counter-Strike has its own like more realistic approach to it. But it always, you get that great feeling of hitting a headshot. Counter-Strike 1.6 for me is unparalleled with the way it gave you the visual feedback when hitting the headshot and the body was just flying back. It's something I still feel great about 20 years after playing Counter-Strike 1.6. That's how important that thing is. So right now, Fortnite Ballistic doesn't deliver on its most important premise, which is shooting. That's my opinion. I hope that the devs are able to sit down and put a lot of effort into making this feel more satisfying and more exciting to shoot the guns. Alongside the shooting mechanics, there comes probably the biggest challenge that the developers had to swap the third-person perspective of Fortnite to the first-person mechanic. And it's okay. It's not great, not bad. There's a lot of glitches that I you know, because it's early access, I feel like it's gonna get fixed in the future. But there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like the guns are dropping on the ground, but they're floating, so they are covering your field of view. When you go into the ADS mode, you're gonna have a visual feedback of the recoil that will actually cover your target. There's a lot of stuff that is happening because you're close to the wall and your skin is just somehow like melting, and it just covers your eyes because something appeared for a millisecond. When you swap to a grenade, sometimes the grenade covers your eyes. There's a lot of bugs that happen, and they will be for sure fixed in the future, but right now it feels a little bit clunky to play in the first person perspective. The second most important mechanic in a tactical shooter after shooting is the movement. And when we talk about Fortnite Ballistic, the movement that the developers have in their mind when it comes to this game is not like CS, it's not like Valorant. It's actually more like Call of Duty. You have sprinting, you have walking, you have crab walking, of course, you have sliding, and you have vaulting. So it delivers on a different premise than your typical CS or Valorant experience. You have a lot of repositioning by running when you cannot shoot at the same time. If you played Neon, you're gonna, I guess, kind of understand like how it's working, although the difference of speed between players is not that big when it comes to sprinting and just normally walking or running and sprinting. But you slide with exactly the same mechanic as a Neon. So the slide goes in, you pull out your gun, and you can start shooting while sliding. And in general, you know, in this game you should be standing while shooting. The ADS is also adding to your accuracy, and the ADS is actually following the recoil with its crosshair, so it's easy to stay with the crosshair in one place. But that's more about shooting mechanics. But when it comes to the movement, even though the movement is more like Call of Duty based, it doesn't feel polished. It feels like it's incredibly hard to describe the movement, how it feels, because you would have to try it out yourself. But for me, the experience is that you kind of move like in the mud and you don't know what to expect exactly from your own movement. If you are sprinting, you don't know exactly like how your character moves around. You don't know how much you peak when you go through a corner. When you slide, you're not exactly certain how long the slide will be, when your gun will be out, because that comes from experience, of course, but it's not very visually like transparent in the way you play. Vaulting also adds completely new dimension to the way that you want to play a tactical shooter, because now everyone can be on different vertical levels. So because of that, you also change the way you approach the game, and it just feels, in general, the movement feels jerky and junky. It's something that definitely developers need to spend more time on. And the worst part about the movement, though, is its audio system. And that's directly connected, so I'm gonna talk about it, because the audio system in Fortnite Ballistic feels like it's designed to be more realistic than actually more like gameplay motivated. So when you compare it to CS or Valorant, because I feel like Valorant understood that task the most, in Valorant, when you hear the footsteps, they're clearly separate in the audio mix from the other sounds. Like, unless there's so many guns shooting without suppressors, you're not gonna hear like the footsteps most likely very well. But otherwise, the footsteps are just cutting through the audio mix in Valorant, so you always know what's happening around you. In Ballistic, it feels like everything is meshed together, and it's not really well thought of. So it's not clear what is the audio feedback coming to you. So you have to be more prepared for anything happening in the game. It's kind of hard to pinpoint the audio, even though in options you go for like the spatial audio sounds. So you can play on a stereo headphone with the, I'm assuming it's the same option as HRTF in CS or Valorant, but it doesn't feel like it actually helps with pinpointing where the sound comes from. And when it comes to movement, there's also some very weird things that are in the game. So for example, when it comes to crouching, you can only crouch by pressing the button and uncrouch by pressing it again. You cannot have crouching as a hold button, because if you hold the crouch button, you're sliding. So the movement doesn't feel very fluid because of that, and you cannot really change those keybinds to accommodate the way that you would like to play the game. You cannot go separate keybind for crouching and separate keybind for sliding, for example, which makes it very awkward to use. And anyone who plays CS or Valorant would never want to have an activation on a toggle keybind for the crouch. So that makes, like, for me, it very, very janky because of that. Also, there are a few inconsistencies. For example, if you ADS, but you're standing and you go left and right, like AD when you strafe, while ADSing and standing, you're actually slower than if you crouch and do the same movement. So you're faster when crouching, when ADSing and crab walking left-right, than actually standing up and ADSing and going left-right. Probably a bug, because I don't feel like that will be a decision that the game dev of Epic Games would like to do as a decision. It's very unintuitive, so I'm assuming that's a bug and it's gonna get fixed. And talking about keybinds, that's another problem that Fortnite Ballistic has. It's very unwelcoming to new players. If you would like to draw new players that never played like Fortnite maybe even before, then it's even worse for those people. Because when you go into options from Fortnite Ballistic, you have all the options from all the other game modes of Fortnite. So there's a lot of options that you never will need and don't need right now. But it's gonna be confusing for the new players of Fortnite Ballistic that have no context of what's happening in the normal Fortnite. All the building, editing, all of those keybinds are still there, and you see them in front of you, but they will not be available to you when you actually press them in the game, but they will deliver feedback that building is not available in this game mode. So the bloat in the options definitely needs to be cleaned up. Ballistic needs its own options to deliver a better user experience, but also better user interface to its player base, specifically the new players. And also let's talk about the maps, or rather just a map, because early access Fortnite Ballistic has only one map. And I think that's a problem because it gets very old very fast. The map is very simple. It has 3 lanes, 2 sides, and essentially works the same way as any other map in Valorant or in CS. But the way it's being built, it's very open. There's not a lot of like tactical cover that you would like to use for your own benefit. And because of the way the audio works on this map, it just doesn't feel like very great to play on. It also has a very similar problem like Valorant map design has. There's a lot of positioning that just make no sense in post plant. It favors like post plant spam on the bomb when you play from main and just spam the spike in Valorant. And that's a problem that Valorant tackles for the past 4 years and makes a lot of changes. And it feels like the map design right now in Fortnite Ballistic might have the same issue just like Valorant has. Other than that, again, I feel like the map just feels too empty. It's big, but it's empty. And because of that, it doesn't feel great to play on. So it gets really old really fast because you are not having a lot of possibilities when it comes to how you stand on the map. Now, with the map also comes the utility. And you have all the standards like, you know, smokes, flashbangs, explosives. Although, for example, frag grenades, only can one player from a team use them because you choose different pieces of equipment as a special, unique kind of utility that your character will have, and only one person per team can have that. So there's like the bouncing grenades, which essentially make you, they push you away, like, or push the opponents away and make your movement like faster, or you just like kind of like dash on the side like a jet from Valorant. The explosive grenades are just one person as well, and the grenades that everyone can buy are smokes and flashes and recon. Actually, no, recon are also for one class. Well, I diverse. Anyway, the point is that the utility that you have in this game currently doesn't really work well with the map that you have, because of the fact that there's so much movement, like vaulting, sprinting, and just changing your position so fast. It feels like the flashes are very hard to be used effectively because there are so many off angles that people can be at. And also the smokes, because of that, are also not effective, although they are very big. Way bigger than what you're probably used to in Valorant. So, and it's also very hard to actually find your place when you're in the smoke. It's very confusing. So they kind of do their job properly, but because of the map design, they don't feel like they deliver a lot of value because there's so many ways of just looking over the smoke or just straight up just ignoring it and just waiting for your opponent to peek out of it because it's so hard to go through it. So what's the verdict? Because right now, Fortnite Ballistic feels more like a rough draft than a polished game. It has potential, sure, but the shooting mechanics, movement, and the map design all need major work. And I do think that the map design is probably the least of its problems because I'm assuming that Fortnite will have full custom access to maps made by fans. So they will make that job for the developers instead. But the mechanics of the shooting and the movement, that is something that Epic Games need to take very seriously because that is the core gameplay loop that people need to enjoy, and I don't feel like they're gonna enjoy it right now in its current form. Now, I do feel like this game probably should have stayed in the pre-alpha stage, still at the developers, and maybe do some closed testing before releasing it to the public, because it actually might hurt Fortnite Ballistic more than help, right? But I think there are good intentions behind releasing Fortnite Ballistic so early to get that community feedback and make sure that it will hit nail on its head after some time, because the developers will be able to take that feedback seriously and deliver a game that people would like to play right now. But this will take months, and right now I wouldn't recommend playing Fortnite Ballistic if you would like to do it more than a few hours, essentially. Right now, it's just like a test of what can it be, but it's definitely not a game that I could sink my, hours without end. And because it's just one map, and don't get me even started about the community. Right now, when you go into a ranked game, people leave. I had a game where I played 1v4, and I won, by the way, but it was no fun. People are just leaving. People have no idea how to play the game. If you play Valorant and you think the overall game knowledge is very low, you're not prepared what the Fortnite Ballistic community has in it. I mean, if you can call it even, because the game is new. But people will have zero game knowledge of how to play a tactical shooter properly. This is gonna be just like a team deathmatch every single time, and that's what your expectation should be. So, try it out for sure. But the game right now is definitely not something that Epic would like to have in the arsenal and be saying like, yes, this is the 5v5 tactical FPS that we wanted to release. There's a lot of work ahead, and I hope they nail it, because competition is always great. Counterstrike, Valorant, Call of Duty, all of them need a competition, and with the current environment of games just being completely deleted, like Concord, like XDefiant, we need more games like this, even more than before. So I wish luck to Epic Games, and I hope they take this feedback seriously, because I would love to have another great tactical FPS available on the market.